Another case study with you guys in this Neville Goddard book here. It's a case study in his story called The Power of Awareness. And here it goes. In the spring of 1943, a recently drafted soldier was stationed in the large army camp in Louisiana. He was intensely eager to get out of the army, but only in an entirely honorable way. The only way he could do this was to apply for a discharge. The application then required the approval of his commanding officer to become effective. Based on Army regulations, the decision of the commanding officer was final and could not be appealed. The soldier, following all the necessary procedure, applied for a discharge. Within 4 hours, this application was approved, marked disapproved. It was returned, marked disapproved. Convinced he could not appeal the decision to any higher authority, military or civilian, he returned within to his own consciousness, determined to rely on the law of assumption. The soldier realized that his consciousness was his only reality, that his particular state of consciousness determined the events he would encounter. That night, in the interval between getting into bed and falling asleep, he concentrated on consciously using the law of assumption. In his imagination, he felt himself to be in his own apartment in New York City. He visualized his apartment. That is, in his mind's eye, he actually saw his own apartment, mentally picturing each one of the familiar rooms with all furnishings vividly real. With this picture clearly visualized and lying flat on his back, he completely relaxed physically. In this way, he induced a state bordering on sleep, at the same time, and this is key here, retaining control of the direction of his attention. When his body was completely immobilized, he assumed that he was in his own room and felt himself to be lying on his own bed. A very different feeling from that of lying on an army cot. And this anyone can do, and anyone can imagine like this. In imagination, he rose from the bed, walked from room to room, touching various pieces of furniture. He then went to the window and, with his hands resting on the sill, looked out on the street on which his apartment faced. So vivid was all this in his imagination. They saw in detail the pavement, the railings, the trees, and the familiar red brick of the building on the opposite side of the street. He then returned to his bed and felt himself drifting off to sleep. He knew that it was most important in the successful use of this law that at the actual point of falling asleep, his consciousness be filled with the assumption that he was already what he wanted to be. All that he did in imagination was based on the assumption that he was no longer in the army. Night after night, the soldier enacted this drama. Night after night, in his imagination, he felt himself honorably discharged back in his home, selling all the familiar surroundings and fall asleep in his own bed. This continued for 8 nights. For 8 nights, his objective experience continued to be directly opposite to his subjective experience in consciousness each night before going to sleep. On the 9th day, orders came through from battalion headquarters for the soldier to fill out a new application for his discharge. Shortly after this was done, he was ordered to report to the colonel's office. During the discussion, the colonel asked him if he was still desirous of getting out of the army. Upon receiving an affirmative reply, the colonel said that he personally disagreed, and while he had strong objections to approving of the discharge, he had decided to overlook these objections and to approve it. Within a few hours, the application was approved, and the soldier, now a civilian, was on a train bound for home. So basically, he was drafted into the army. This young man was drafted into the army. And instead of forcing, instead of saying, come on, I want out of the army, you can't make me do this, he went to the higher source. So he calls it the law of liberty, where he uses his vivid imagination, which we all have. We can all utilize our imagination. It has to become a practice, or you have to be desirous of your wish fulfilled. And he talks about our imagination as our only reality. Everything around us is just a direct reflection of what we embody inside. Our own consciousness, our own divine consciousness. You can use these imaginal acts, whether you're in business or music or some sort of industry. I'm sharing these messages with you guys so that you can apply them in your own lives. And also financial, relationships, family, health, all these things. You can apply these into your life. You have to be committed to it. You can't just. Sometimes it might seem like you're not getting the results you want, but it's a matter of being committed and feeling in the state you're already in. You're not supposed to try as hard as you can. Manifesting, you almost have to come to a point where you put yourself in the state where what you want, and don't stress over it. The key here is to drop the seed. Like it says in the Bible, drop the seed meaning drop your desire. Let your subconscious mind take over, and it will express itself in some shape or form. You can't fail this stuff. It's just a matter of holding on to having the faith, the end result, living in the end as if you've already got it. Don't work towards it. Live within the end as if you're living in the end of your desire. And you'll see the synchronicities happen. You'll see subtle signs. I don't know what they are for you. You have to figure that out for yourself. But I'm just sharing these things to help you guys out. Bless you all and wish you all a prosperous life.